I used to steal my poor classmate's lunch every single day just to humiliate him and laugh at him. But when I read the note his mother had hidden in his bag, the food turned to ashes in my mouth. I was the biggest bully in school, without question. My name is Miguel Santos. My father was an influential politician, and my mother owned a chain of luxury wellness resorts. I wore the best sneakers, carried the latest iPhone, and lived in a massive house in Alabang, yet I also lived with a suffocating loneliness no one could see. My favorite target was Paolo. Paolo was a scholarship student. He wore second-hand clothes, walked with his head down, and carried his lunch in a wrinkled brown paper bag, stained with oil spots. Every day during recess, I repeated the same joke. I would snatch the bag from his hand, climb onto a bench, and shout mockingly, "Let's see what trash the prince of the slums brought today." Paolo never answered. He would just stand there, eyes red, silently begging for the humiliation to end quickly. I would pull out his food, sometimes a mashed banana, sometimes cold rice, and throw it into the trash while everyone laughed. Then I'd head to the cafeteria and buy pizza with a limitless credit card. On a gloomy Tuesday, I decided to go even further. I grabbed the bag. It was lighter than ever. I sneered, "Wow, super light today. What's wrong, Paolo? Ran out of money even for rice?" Paolo tried to get the bag back. He pleaded, his voice trembling, "Please, Miguel, give it back, not today." But his pleading only made me crueler. I opened the bag in front of everyone and turned it upside down. No food fell out, only a hard, dry piece of bread and a small folded note. I laughed loudly and said, "Look, bread, hard as a rock. Careful, you might break your teeth." I bent down to pick up the note, thinking it was a to-do list or something else to mock. I opened it and began to read in an exaggerated theatrical voice so everyone could hear. "My dear son, forgive me. Today I couldn't buy cheese or butter. This morning I skipped breakfast so you could bring this piece of bread with you. This is all we have until I get paid on Friday. Eat it slowly. Maybe it will fill you more. Study hard. You are my pride and my hope. With all my love, Mom." My voice faded as I read. Before I reached the signature, the schoolyard had sunk into a deadly silence. I looked at Paolo. He was crying silently, covering his face in shame. I looked at the piece of bread on the ground. It wasn't trash. It was his mother's breakfast. It was hunger she had chosen to endure out of pure love. I remembered my Italian leather lunch bag. Inside were gourmet sandwiches, imported juice, and expensive chocolate. My mother didn't even know what was inside it. The maid prepared it. My mother hadn't asked me how my day at school was for 3 days. My stomach was full, but my heart was empty. Paolo's stomach was empty, but his heart was full of a love that made his mother starve for him. I stepped toward him. Everyone expected another insult, but I knelt down. I picked up the bread carefully, as if it was something sacred, gently brushed it off, and placed it back in his hand with the note. Then I took out my fancy lunch and placed it in his lap. I said in a hoarse voice, "Trade lunches with me, Paolo. Please, your bread is worth more than everything I own." I sat beside him. For the first time in my life, I didn't eat pizza. I ate humility, and I promised myself, as long as there was money in my pocket, Paolo's mother would never have to skip breakfast again. Paolo didn't reach out immediately. He looked at me as if this were another trick, as if the mockery would fall on him again in seconds. His hands trembled as he held the note. I said quietly, in a way I had never spoken before, "I'm sorry. Truly sorry." It was the first time I had ever apologized without feeling weak. Instead, I felt a weight fall from my chest. We sat together. No one laughed. Some lowered their heads, others swallowed hard. The scene they had expected as a cruel show turned into a harsh mirror. Paolo ate slowly, just as his mother had asked. And me? I couldn't swallow a single bite. Every mouthful reminded me of how many times I had laughed at someone else's hunger. After recess, the teacher called us in. He didn't yell, he didn't punish, he only said, "Some lessons aren't written in books." That day, I was no longer Miguel Santos the bully. I became Miguel who sat next to Paolo. The days that followed changed. I stopped stealing. I started sharing. I bought 2 lunches instead of 1, and when someone tried to mock Paolo, I stood in the way. Weeks later, Paolo invited me to his home. It was small, humble, but warm. I met his mother. She looked at me with tired, grateful eyes. I said nothing. I couldn't. That night, I returned to my large house. So many rooms, dim lights, silence louder than any palace. I finally understood. Poverty is not a lack of money, and wealth is not an abundance of things. True poverty is to have everything and not be human. And from that day on, whenever I see a piece of dry bread, I remember that bread mixed with love is more filling than a feast without a heart.